You ever have that feeling when you know something's about to go wrong? Not just wrong, but biblically wrong. That's what I felt the first time I saw her. Karen, capital K, the kind of woman who weaponizes a clipboard and wears a Bluetooth headset like it's part of her skull. The HOA didn't know it yet, but they'd just handed their souls over to a suburban warlord. Let me back up. I've got a farm. Not a fancy one, but it's mine. Little piece of green that's been in my family for 3 generations. Chickens, corn, tomatoes, one very grumpy bull named El Diablo, and the quiet kind of life you can't put a price on. I've never been part of the HOA. My land's technically adjacent to their little manicured kingdom, and thank God for that. Things were peaceful. Emphasis on were. Then came Karen. She bought the house on the corner, a 2-story monstrosity with fake columns and the kind of lawn you'd expect to see in a brochure for Stepford Wives Monthly. At first, she played it sweet. Cookies at the door, waves from her Range Rover, compliments on how rustic my tractor looked. Red flag number 1, but I didn't think much of it. I'd seen her type before, bored, bossy, and deeply invested in the illusion of power. Everything flipped when the old HOA president, a mild guy named Chuck who spent more time fishing than governing, suddenly quit. "I'm tired. Go," he said at the community meeting, tossing his resignation like a guy trying to defuse a bomb. I should have known it wasn't a coincidence. Enter Karen. With a smile so wide it made your spine itch, she announced she'd reluctantly take over as interim president. The vote was a formality. No one else wanted the job, and her claws hadn't shown yet. But oh, did they come out. At first, it was subtle. Increased dues. Fines for minor things like non-regulation gnomes and unauthorized bird feeders. She claimed it was all to beautify the community and raise property values. Most folks grumbled, but Karen wrapped her tyranny in the velvet glove of property equity, and they swallowed it. I watched from the sidelines. Wasn't my circus, not my HOA. But I kept seeing her drive past my land. Not just drive, hover. Her SUV would slow to a crawl, windows down, and she'd stare across my fields like she was deciding which steak to order. Then she'd spot me, flash a too-white smile, wave like I was her neighbor and not her next acquisition, and drive off. I didn't like it. Neither did El Diablo. Then came the meeting. I wasn't there, obviously. I've got a strict no Karen policy, but I got the play-by-play from a buddy who was. Karen, high on power and HOA dues, rolled out a proposal for a golf club and community leisure complex. She paced like a TED Talk speaker, arms flailing, talking about legacy projects and attracting the right demographic. "This," she said, practically drooling, "this will give me, us, so many opportunities." Yeah, she almost let the cat out of the Hermes handbag there. Someone finally spoke up, some poor guy who'd clearly never dealt with a Karen in the wild. "But the map shows the project overlaps with land that's outside the HOA. Farms, I think." Karen didn't blink. "That's being handled. I've already spoken to the investors. They're excited. We can't back down now." Translation, she'd already sold the fantasy. Now she needed the land to match the brochure. And guess whose farm was smack in the middle of her vision board? The first victims were Harold and Marlene. Salt of the earth, mid-70s, lived on their land longer than most of the HOA folks had been alive. Karen approached them with her offer. They told her where she could put it. 2 days later, they got a visit from the Department of Environmental something or other. Anonymous tip. Claimed there were illegal chemicals in their soil. Funny how that works, huh? They fought. Of course they did. But paperwork is a hell of a drug, and the state guy showed up with forms and urgent concerns. Karen dropped by the next morning with her smug offer and a pen. Harold was crying when he signed. Marlene looked like she'd aged 10 years overnight. I stood on my porch and watched their moving truck pull away. Karen drove past again, slowed down, and waved. Like a vulture with a manicure. That's when I knew. She wasn't just a problem for the HOA. She was a plague with a clipboard, and she had set her sights on me. I didn't flinch when the county environmental guy showed up at my gate the next week. Clipboard in hand. Same smugness. "I need to inspect your property for illegal cultivation," he said. I nodded. "Sure. Just don't go into that field over there." He sneered like I'd insulted his mother. "Sir, I have the power of the government, he snapped. See this ID? This card means I can go wherever I want. No reports. No permission. Do I make myself clear? Crystal. Well, I said, I warned you. And I went back to trimming the hedges. 3 minutes later, I heard the scream. Then the thunder of hooves. Then more screaming. I turned just in time to see him sprinting across the field, papers flying, pants dirt-streaked. Behind him, El Diablo was making good on his name, horns down, every bit the juggernaut he'd been bred to be. I dropped my shears and jogged to the fence. Hey, show him your ID. Come on, hotshot. Show him your fucking ID. Maybe he'll respect you. The guy barely made it through the gate before I slammed it shut. El Diablo snorted, huffed, and strutted off, deeply offended he'd been denied his prey. The expert, who now looked like a cartoon character who'd lost a fight with gravity, spat dirt out of his mouth and hissed, "This isn't over." I grinned. Nope, not even close. He barely got into his car and drove away. Then I pulled out my phone. Hey, Michael, remember the old farm? I think it's time for a little family reunion. Some rats need evicting. He didn't ask questions. Said he'd be there by sundown. And that's where things stopped being funny and started getting serious. Michael showed up like a ghost with a badge. The sun had just dipped behind the hills, painting the sky in fire orange and trouble red, when a blacked-out government-issued Jeep rolled down my gravel path. You ever seen a vehicle so intimidating it makes your property feel like it's trespassing? That was this thing. I swear the grass turned itself military green out of respect. Michael stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in that, I'm not technically FBI, but let's not test it kind of way. Last I saw him, he was knee-high and chasing chickens in cowboy boots. Now he looked like the guy you call when the Marines need backup. You've grown, I said, trying not to sound like a proud grandpa who also secretly needed a special forces team. Yeah, well, Michael shrugged. You said rats. I brought traps. I gave him the rundown. The visits, the forced buyouts, the fake inspections, and of course, the ID-wielding track star who nearly became El Diablo's chew toy. Michael didn't interrupt once. Just listened, arms crossed, that little twitch in his jaw that told me he was already about to turn some lives upside down. All right, he said, they won't be back tonight. Rats don't scurry when it's too quiet. What happens tomorrow? I asked. You'll be under surveillance, he said, like he was telling me I'd won a prize. Surveillance. I raised a brow. I thought you were sending help, not Big Brother. He grinned. Trust me, you won't even notice him. That turned out to be a lie. Because I did notice him. But only because I stepped in cow manure and he whispered through a tree, "Watch your step." Michael handed me a tiny black device the size of a matchbox. Press this button to start recording. Keep it in your shirt pocket. We need clean audio of the next time they come sniffing around. I pocketed it and nodded. So what now? Now, he said, heading back to his Jeep. You go back to being a harmless old farmer. And you? I go set a trap. But don't worry. When it snaps shut, you'll hear it from here. He drove off into the dusk, tires crunching gravel like the start of a reckoning. The next day felt like the calm before a storm that Karen had personally scheduled on her HOA calendar. Around noon, I saw the same dull beige sedan rolling up the path. Like a sitcom rerun, there was the same smug expert from yesterday, only now he'd brought backup. 3 other guys stepped out with him, all wearing government windbreakers and the same expression of bureaucratic righteousness. They were also carrying metal suitcases, which was either a sign of professional work or a really aggressive Tupperware party. I leaned on my pitchfork. Back so soon. We're here for another inspection, the lead guy declared, puffing his chest like he hadn't just been outrun by a bovine Terminator the day before. And the suitcases? Standard testing kits, he snapped. Interesting, I said. Well, I suppose El Diablo could use the entertainment again. They all froze. Joking, I added. Mostly. This time, they gave the bulls pasture a wide berth, heading to a different field. Still, I noticed that every few minutes, the lead guy would glance back nervously like he expected Diablo to materialize from the corn like a demonic farm guardian. About an hour passed. I stayed close but out of earshot, pretending to tinker with the tractor while the mic in my pocket did the real work. Eventually, they came back, carrying little vials and plastic sample bags like they'd just raided a science fair. "We found prohibited substances," the expert declared proudly, holding up one of the sample bags like it was a damn trophy. "Oh really?" I asked, not even pretending to be surprised. "Just like the other two farms." His smug smile widened. "Your future here is, let's say, uncertain." I tilted my head. "Funny. I was just thinking the same thing. About you." He blinked. "What?" I pulled out my phone. "Michael." On the other end, Michael's voice was calm. "Got it. Guys are in place." I smiled. "Stand by. Showtime." And right on cue, because Michael runs his ops like a symphony, two unmarked black vans rolled up from opposite ends of the road like predators closing in. The government boys froze, suitcases clutched tight. One even reached for his badge, like that would help him now. Doors slid open. Out stepped a team of agents. One tech specialist fiddling with a drone remote, one officer with a clipboard, ironic, I know, and several operatives in full gear fanning out and surrounding them. "Gentlemen," the officer said, calm and crisp, "you are under arrest for attempted fraud, conspiracy to seize private property, and abuse of regulatory authority." The lead guy turned 3 shades paler and started stammering something about just following protocol. Meanwhile, the tech guy tapped his tablet, and a sleek black drone descended from the sky like the hand of karma itself, landing gently between the suitcases. "Oh," I muttered, watching it land. So that's what he meant by "you won't notice him." Michael pulled up last, stepping out of his Jeep like he was showing up to collect trophies, not suspects. "Nice samples," he said, gesturing at the suitcase. "Let me guess, planted evidence." "We didn't," the lead guy began. "You didn't what?" "Know your whole operation's been under surveillance since yesterday? That you've been tied to Karen since your last inspection 5 counties over?" The man's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. One of the others broke. "It was her. She told us it was all legal. She said she'd covered everything." "Oh, buddy," Michael laughed. "That's not how any of this works." Then came the click of handcuffs. Beautiful sound, really. Like Justice got a new ringtone. One of the inspectors tried to bolt. Took exactly 2 steps before a taser dart smacked him right in the hamstring. He went down twitching like a fish on a skillet. Another one burst into tears and started crying for his mom. Meanwhile, the lead guy, the one with the fake swagger and real fear, just sat down on the ground, muttering to himself. As they were herded into the vans, Michael turned to me. "You got that audio?" I patted my pocket. "Crystal clear." "Perfect," he said, pocketing the device. I glanced over toward the road, where the dust from the vans was still settling. Then I turned to him with a grin. "And what about Karen?" Michael's eyes twinkled. "Perfect. We've got a team heading to her now. Special delivery. In fact, we're giving her the VIP treatment." "Oh," I asked. "She gets her own van," he smirked. "Royal escort. Screaming included." And trust me, she did scream. Let me tell you something about Karen. You'd think a woman who fine-policed grass height and carried a laminated HOA rulebook in her purse wouldn't go down easy. But oh no, Karen didn't just go down. She went down flailing, screaming, and with enough volume to set off 3-car alarms and probably crack a few local bird populations. See, while her bootleg environmental goon squad was getting scooped off my land like rotten produce, Karen was still lounging in her ivory tower of community leadership, probably sipping sugar-free wine and imagining herself as the next suburban Caesar, ready to pave over farmland and replace it with putting greens. But Karen forgot one thing. The bigger the ego, the louder the crash. According to Michael, who, at this point, I'm convinced moonlights as a ghostbuster, SWAT captain, and federal prosecutor all rolled into one, Karen's downfall was being served with extra spectacle. Here's what went down. Around the same time the vans were carting off her cronies, another team of agents showed up in front of her white picket fence palace. Neighbors peeked through their blinds, sipping iced tea like it was Oscar night. Karen, in all her presidential glory, answered the door in a silk bathrobe and a look of faux surprise so dramatic it should have won a daytime Emmy. "I don't understand. What's this about?" she gasped, clutching her chest like someone told her Whole Foods had closed. The lead agent calmly handed her a warrant. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, intimidation of private citizens, unlawful seizure attempts, and several counts of misrepresentation to federal authorities. Karen's jaw unhinged like a python trying to swallow a pumpkin. Then she snapped. I am the president of this community, she screamed. You can't do this to me. I have rights. Oh, she had rights. Just not the ones that stop you from being cuffed in your own driveway, while barefoot and foaming at the mouth. Neighbors watched in stunned silence as the woman who once ticketed them for having holiday decorations up 2 days too long was now being frog-marched into a van, screaming obscenities that would have made a pirate blush. And the best part? She didn't walk into that van. Nope. She refused to move, stiffened up like a fainting goat. So they had to carry her out, arms and legs like a malfunctioning mannequin, kicking and shrieking. The woman who once told Marlene she couldn't have a wind chime because it disturbed the peace was now disturbing it at max volume, screeching about conspiracies and how she was the victim of a political coup. One of the neighbors, sweet old Ruth from down the street, watched it all go down from her porch rocker. She told me later, I think she was possessed. I mean, they didn't arrest her, they exorcised her. By the time the van door slammed shut, Karen was still shrieking about lawsuits, reputations, and how she would have everyone's badge. The agent driving didn't even flinch, just turned up the AC and drove off like it was any other Tuesday. I wish I could say that was the end, but oh no. Karen's collapse was the gift that kept on giving. Turns out, the investors she'd sweet-talked with promises of secured land and community support weren't thrilled to learn that everything had been built on illegal pressure tactics and forged documents. Once word got out that their precious golf resort was now a federal investigation, they flipped faster than pancakes on Sunday morning. They sued her. Hard. Michael told me she'd be facing charges for racketeering, wire fraud, abuse of public authority, and, get this, aggravated HOA overreach. I didn't even know that last one was a thing, but apparently, if you push hard enough, even bureaucracy has a snapping point. And boy, did she push. The district breathed like it hadn't in years. You could feel it. People stopped walking with their heads down. Lawns grew half an inch past the Karen regulation, and no one cared. Wind chimes sang. Garden gnomes re-emerged from hiding. A guy 2 streets over even put up Halloween decorations in July, just because he could. But it was the barbecue that really sealed it. A few days after the arrests, someone had the bright idea to throw a block party. Not just any party. This thing was Independence Day, Thanksgiving, and Mardi Gras rolled into one. They called it Karen-Free Community Day. I was the guest of honor. Not by choice, but because folks insisted. I showed up in my work boots and cleanest flannel, only to be greeted by hugs, handshakes, and more potato salad than any one human should responsibly consume. Marlene and Harold were there, too. Turns out, Karen's deal with the investors hadn't gone through yet, so their land was technically still theirs. With the charges in place and a very pissed-off judge involved, they got it back. Their eyes shined when they told me. You saved us, Harold said, voice cracking. Nah, I shrugged. El Diablo did most of the work. People laughed. And for once, it wasn't the nervous kind. By sunset, we were grilling burgers, dancing under string lights, and toasting to the fall of the clipboard queen. Someone even handed me a certificate, handwritten, glitter-glued, and misspelled, that read, District Hero, Official HOA Slayer. I hung it in the barn, right next to El Diablo's feed. Karen? She's now an urban legend. Kids joke about her clipboard being buried somewhere near the old golf course plans, cursed and waiting for the next fool to dig it up. And me? I still get up with the sun, feed the chickens, tend the fields, and smile when I see the grass growing a little taller than it used to, because now it grows free. A few weeks after the barbecue, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just a plain envelope and handwriting so stiff it looked like it had to stick up its well. Inside was a note. This isn't over. You think you've won, but people like me don't disappear. We relocate. K. Charming. I taped it to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a pitchfork and made a mental note to forward it to Michael. He called me a few days later, laughing. She's trying to file a harassment complaint. From prison. Still president of her cell block. Is she? Oh yeah, he said. Even demanded a name tag and a clipboard. They gave her a toilet brush instead. So yeah, maybe the fight's over for now. But if Karen or one of her clipboard-wielding cousins ever comes sniffing around again, this time they'll find a district that knows better. A district that stood up, kicked back, and now proudly displays non-HOA's past this point signs with the kind of boldness that only freedom and a little revenge can buy. And me? I'm ready. Because like I told Michael that night at the barbecue, grinning under the stars and full of steak, if they ever try this crap again, they better bring more than clipboards and fake IDs. They'll need divine intervention, or at least a faster pair of shoes. Thank you for being with us. Please share in the comments where you are watching from and whether you liked everything, and see you next time.